I wanted to bring my little friend in here. It's a little bit different when you're reading it or you're talking about it or you're using a fake dog than it is to actually have a real dog in front of you and going, oh shit, you know.
Right.
So,
So we're going to do a little training with Stacy, and we are live. So people, if anybody's watching, you can ask questions, and we'll try to answer as we go.
All right. And while I talk, I'm just going to go ahead and put this down for him in case he decides he wants to come away from Lovin's and get something. All right. So I want to start out by a couple things. Leash holding. One of the things that I see a lot is the wrapping. So I know it feels like you have control when you're wrapping the leash, but seconds matter. So when you're like this, you don't have the full control of the leash without trying to unwrap your hand or wrap it up to try to get that control, right? So my recommendation, which you'll see a lot, is in a 7. You've got 2 hands on the leash. You can wrap it so you can anchor, or put your loop here so that you can still anchor. That way if you fall, right, your natural reflex is to do this. You'll hear a lot, the appropriate way is the thumb lock. I love the thumb lock. It really gives you a good grip. However, in this environment, the only problem I have with that is when we're out walking on slippery slopes or the ice, our first response and reaction is going to be to do this. And then it quickly is gone. And that's automatic. You have no control over that. So at least if you have it anchored, I just call it like an anchor, right? You're not wrapping it, you're not doing anything, you're just anchoring it there. So if you go down, it's less likely you're going to lose your dog. My dominant hand is my right hand. And I point that out for a reason, because if I have to straight arm, then it's going to be my dominant hand that is going to take the blunt of everything, right? So in a 7, this doesn't matter, right? Because this is where I'm going to be controlling, is where my dominant hand is actually placed at. So I don't have to worry about wrapping all of this up. If in fact that gets in your way, or you have a leash biter and you need to shorten that, then I can still do an accordion and bring that leash shorter. And then when I need to or I want to, I can let it go and go back to having 2 hands on that leash and controlling that leash, right? Without taking a second to get everything unwound on my hand. So straight arm. That's why we got our little friend here who is not jumping on me right now. But when we do straight arm, like I said, you have 2 hands on the leash. Straight arm is not having that wrapped around and pulling the dog away. You have no control. So if you happen to wrap it 4 times and you're trying to straight arm and that dog is coming at you, what happens if you need to maybe wrap it 5 or 6 times? Now you're having to unwrap, rewrap, and stuff is happening, and seconds matter, right? So instead, you have your dominant hand. You're going to slide your hand right down. So if the dog is doing something, I can slide my hand down, pull up and out. It's quick. And you can practice this on dogs that don't even need it, right? Just as far as the technique, the handling, the jumpy dogs, just practice sliding that hand down. I would say in the paper, like, keep it about 7 inches from the neck, but I can't do that because it really matters on the size of the dog. So you're not going to do that with a little dog, right? You're going to have more leash there. Where a bigger dog, you're going to have, your hand, if your dog is this tall, your hand literally may be as close to the neck. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, you'll get a feel for that. The more that you do that, the quicker you'll get to kind of gauge on, okay, this dog is jumping up. As they're jumping up, even sometimes is when because it's not perfect, right? So you're sliding your hand down as they're already jumping up, but you have the capability of doing that if you're keeping two hands on the leash and you're able to just do a quick slide down. And when you do, you slide it down, you pull up, and you pull out. Okay?
So what about us people that are challenged in the arm length? Because I know trying to do that, I have such a hard time because my arms are so short.
That's why if you, and again, what's on the back side of this doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You don't have to worry about trying to wrap it. That literally does not matter. So even if you have short arms, then really you're just going to go closer to the neck, because and I will remind that this is only for defensive handling. This is not, my dog is, jumping and we're just walking and I can redirect them with something else, because it is pretty harsh handling. It's not something that we're going to be seeing volunteers or staff walking around straight arming dogs like this or handling them. So it is pretty dramatic sometimes to see when somebody has, this much and you're standing up. Even if your arms are short, you are getting that dog up and out away from you. You know what I mean? And sometimes as soon as you loosen, it depends on the dog. I've had it where the moment that you begin to loosen that leash and put them back down, if this is a dog that's trying to cause harm to you and you're straight arming this dog away from you, and the moment that you give it any leeway, then they're right back at you. Again, keeping your hand and keeping two hands. This don't matter. You just know that at least it's anchored. It's not going anywhere. So you don't have to worry about making sure that's short. It's not going anywhere. This is going to be your dominant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And two hands on that leash at all times. Most of the time when we're doing our straight arm, it's because they're jumping at us. So, that's why I keep going like sideways. But, sometimes you have dogs that are wanting to come in the front, and it's the same concept. You're going to have two hands on there. Even if initially I've had to pull a dog off that was here, pull that dog off and quickly okay, let me get it together, slide my hand down so that way the dog was over to my side instead of in front of me. But like I said, the more that you're playing with that and practicing that, the quicker that you'll get. It will become like a muscle memory. You know what I mean? Like the dog is doing this and your hand automatically will slide down.
Pushing them up in the air.
Pulling up and out.
Up.
Yep.
So they're like on
out.
their hind feet.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I said it can be pretty dramatic watching and seeing. But that's for safety. This is a safety, defensive handling technique that, don't worry if it looks rough, because it could look rough. But the goal is you don't want to be doing this, because if you have this much leash, or even think that your leash is fine, or you're doing it with one hand, and that my leash is tight, but as soon as that dog jumps up, that leash isn't tight anymore. And so that's where the sliding of the hand, you may have to change it, you know what I mean? If the dog is jumping up, you're going to shorten that, right, immediately. So starting out on that, you should always have two hands on that leash. You have zero control if you just do one-handed straight arms. It just won't. It won't work for you. And that really truly is the key, is the length of the leash. Keeping that leash short is what's going to give you the control to be able to.
And again, you do this when a dog is jumping on you, going to bite you, you're preventing a bite.
Right. You do this when they're coming out, barreling out at you. You'll see us say, make sure that you straight arm and you're ready to get that dog down the hall. So, if they're leash biting, they come out, you immediately bring your hand out and you got them going down. You're running. You may keep them feet down so that way they can run. But that way, if you need to pull up, you can still pull up, right?
For humping?
For humping, that is exactly, and that's a great example of, again, where are you going to pick that leash up at? If that dog is humping you, and we know we're not going to push the dog off, right? We're going to pull that dog. So you're going to do it very close to the neck area. This is where you're going to gather your control at, right? Versus out like this. So,
Okay.
Quick release.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to keep one in my back. Hi, sweetheart. Yes, I am.
Zach, what are we doing?
It's good times. Love you.
All right. So quick release.
And what type of leash do you use
I
for the
just
quick?
use a regular flat leash.
Let's look at
Always try to go with different different color, different material,
So you
different
know.
than what the leash is that you use, because you can easily yank the leash right off the dog's head if you pull the wrong leash.
Okay,
so
right.
The key to doing this is often used if they charge to the back of the kennel, right? You're trying to put them in, they charge back there. We don't want you jumping in there and cornering them to get the leash off. So if you know that a dog is extremely fearful and that's likely to happen, I recommend using this. Stop at the door, clip it on the little latch there, the little ring,
Okay.
right? If they're very fearful, you may have to go very
I
slow
know.
to do that. Reaching down may trigger them. Sometimes you need to have them distracted. You can toss some food on the floor and then very slowly go down and clip. You can ask another person to stop in the hallway and they can talk to the dog, and then you can slowly clip. If the dog turns and catches you doing it, a lot of time it's like, okay, stop. That's a cutoff. Don't push it. You have as many attempts to try it as you need, right? Don't push it and end up getting bit. The key to this too, make sure that the stopper is way up, because sometimes it can get twisted, sometimes it gets stuck, and there's nothing more frustrating than now you have two leashes in that kennel and you're trying to get this off their head and it's just wrapped up and it won't come off. The higher the stopper, the bigger the loop is to get it off of them. So even if sometimes there's a mistake, it'll
That's
just
right.
slap off anyways.
I love him.
So yeah, Sherry, if you want to get close, I'll pull this and show like what it does. As soon as you pull the blue, it lifts that up so it comes off his head. So I'm pulling the blue,
Yep.
and it makes that wider. So this goes on at the door. You walk them back to the kennel. You can close the kennel door. Keep a hold. It doesn't really matter if you drop this leash, because you're going to pull it out with this one.
Hi,
Just
honey.
don't drop this leash.
No.
If you drop this leash, then you have a problem. So yeah, this is going to be your saving grace for the dogs that also run, or you get them back in and they turn around and zoom right back out, and you can't seem to get them out, because you can still take that off with the door shut. So you get them in, shut that door really fast, and then you have the blue leash. You can pull them off. Hi, baby. Yes,
Everybody
you're
get
doing
that?
So good. Yes, you're doing good. Okay.
That's one I could never.
The quick release. Yeah. All right, Bella.
That quick release has helped so much when we've had those like 90-pound dogs that it took 4 of us
Yeah.
to even get them in and get the door shut, and you're dying. But it's those dogs that are so big and so strong, and they're wanting to turn around and come right back out. You can just shut the door.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, exactly. Because you can do it right through that crack in the door. The door doesn't matter. No, we're not doing it with your little underbite.
He's so cute.
I love him.
Doesn't somebody want to adopt him? I love him.
He's so good. I love his little underbite. And
He's
his
the best little boy in the world. Sort of.
All right, and then suitcase. Suitcase can actually be done a couple ways, and that I say is the volunteer's equivalent to a catch pole. So it always, always, always needs to be the last resort. Once everything else has been exhausted and tried, and you just can't get the dog back in and get the dog moving.
Like in the hallway when it's flattened, and you've
Yes.
tried treat trailing, you've tried doing all that.
If and that dog's body language is clearly telling you you are not picking that dog
You are
up.
not.
And nothing else is working, you've tried everything else, then you can go to the suitcase. So I don't have, and of course they wouldn't be as rowdy as little man here.
Yes.
So the biggest thing, I should have probably brought the dog, so that you guys could practice on the other dog because he's going to be a little harder.
Yeah.
He's moving. But the big thing with him, no, we're not doing that. No. Be very careful on how you get that leash around them, okay? So I'm going to show with 2 people or with 1 person right now what we would do with if there were 2. So,
You need 2 people. So you want to help
kind
her?
of stuck. No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Oh, no. Okay.
But,
No.
okay, well, normally this, you're going to use your foot and get underneath them
Yeah.
as far as you can.
Okay.
And then bring it and pick it up, right? That would be under his belly, not where it's at. But you may have to try that a few times because that's exactly what they're going to be doing is moving.
Can you do that by yourself?
You can,
Okay.
just like that.
Okay.
There you go.
Just watch your boy parts, please.
Yeah.
Watch your little boy parts because that's not fun.
No.
So this is the 2 leash. Even with 1 person, doing the 2 leash really is kind of preferred because our stray leashes are so short.
Yes.
And so then you're not giving yourself very much room. So if you look at the internet, their suitcase may show 1 leash being wrapped around. That's why it's called a suitcase. Kind of comes up across. That's a little harder for most people to try to do just by themselves and with 1. So doing it with 2, you're going to have to be careful putting that around and under the dog because some dogs are going to be like, yeah, I don't want you that close, right? So use your foot, slide that under there. When you get it like this, right, like I said, watch the boy parts, then the pressure you want is coming from the back. So you're pulling from the back, you're guiding from the front. You don't want, the whole point is you don't want to be dragging them by their neck, right? So all of that forward motion and that pressure is going to come from the back. There's times that, they're fighting and their back end comes off the floor. Just give them a minute, you know what I mean? Just kind of readjust it, let them kind of take a break. Most of the time, they'll start moving. And then you can just kind of lightly take it off of them in case you need to reapply that pressure if they stop. Okay. Yeah, and usually they're not quite as movable as he is right now.
Right.
So-
They're flat.
Usually they're flattened, so it might take some finagling. But the foot, my point is use your foot. Don't reach
Bend your
down there and try to get this underneath and start doing one of these numbers because if you're having to use that, it's probably likely that dog isn't really wanting much interaction or going anywhere. It's scared. So with the 1, again, just kind of get the momentum of going under. It's facing that way. Brings it back up. And if you had to, then you could. Okay. But I find the other way usually is a lot easier because it isn't always, it's not always that easy to get a dog.
Especially.
So you have a little bit more grace if you have 2 of them. You're not using the same leash that you're trying to control the dog with.
But in desperation, you do what you have to
Right,
do.
exactly. You'll do what you have.
And if you have 2 people,
If you have 2 people, you do exactly what I showed the first time.
Good.
One
Okay.
person will have the leash, have the other person go ahead and wrap the other one around their back end.
Okay.
And you can kind of guide that dog's front. And they're guiding the back. You can also be, distracting them a little bit so that the person can get that under them and they're less likely to be all moving around because now they're like, oh God, there's 2 of you. I don't really know what to do.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
He's so,
This
yeah.
is exhausting.
I know, I've got goodies for you. Any questions on suitcase? No? All right, remember, last effort for this dog, for this technique on the dogs.
Yes.
That's not our go-to. It's highly traumatic for them. He's like,
He's hungry.
What do you have in there? Yeah.
This is good times.
Get the ad. Get the ad.
All right, next one. What do we have after that?
Treat scatters.
Treat scatters. Okay. So this is a good one for not just treat trailing or going in or you know, getting dogs, it's basically to get the dogs to go in whatever direction you want them to go into. So, you know, if it works with reactive dogs, if there's a reactive dog out in, you know, or if there's a dog out in their view and they're like, oh crap, you know you don't want to walk that way, then you're just going to toss the treats in whatever direction you want the dog to go into. That quick, that easy. So if we're walking, he's like, that's good stuff. If we're walking and we want to turn, just guide them, or you can use, you know, close, like the emergency U-turn one.
Which we will put, I'll do pictures and put that in there of her outline and also this little thing.
So with the emergency U-turn, it's just a little bit more direct in their nose, right? So the dog, this works well too. You have, you know, dogs coming, loose dogs coming. You're like, oh shit, I need you can throw the treats at the other dog in hopes that their food drive is enough that they'll go over there. Doesn't always work, but it's an option. And then you just want to, with that in front of your dog's nose, just guide them so that you can
And
get
go fast.
turned and quickly bolt out without them focusing on what's
Coming.
there, whatever is triggering them. Great for RT, can be for people too. Some dogs are a little uncomfortable with people. So if you know you have a dog that's like, oh God, has that stranger danger and there's a whole hall full of people, then that's a quick, we haven't taught them a U-turn, so to say. Treat in front of the nose, okay, let's go. We're gonna go back this way now, we're just gonna move away, right? Rather than them standing there freezing, freaking out. Quick, easy way to get them to follow you. All right, visual. This is only if a dog is not being reactive, right? It goes right back to kind of the same thing. If there's a dog or, you know, something in the field of vision, before the dog starts to react, you can just step in front of the dog, feed, feed, feed. Say, you know, you're in a scrunched place and a drama happens and you're trying to distract the dog, or maybe there's a loose dog or something going on, but you need your dog's attention. You're going to take those high values, you're going to body block whatever view, the dog's over here. You're just using your body to block whatever you're trying to inhibit the dog from seeing. And treats, just treat them. It'll keep that attention on you. A dog can pass behind if need be, or over in the horizon, whatever, and the dog is less reactive and responsive.
So always have high value treats on you.
Always, always, because anything can happen. I mean, you know, you could get a dog out and stray and not have any clue. It could be their first time out, and you don't know that dog is now stuck way out there, and you have no way to get that dog back in. And sometimes it is hard to get a suitcase on that dog. They're scared and they're like moving and they're going around.
Arrow.
Oh God, yeah, but who was that one? It was Yeti.
Yeti, yes.
Ooh, yeah, Yeti. We were not suitcasing Yeti. That was not happening.
No.
That dog was very clearly telling you, you better stay away from me. I'm not a threat. I don't want to hurt anybody. I'm terrified, but please don't come over and think you're going to put something around me like that. You know, so it was a lot of just treat trails and patience and, you know.
Sticking to the same routine with him.
Yeah. So, yes. Let me see what else we got. What did we have?
Helper. He's a
Belly lock
helper.
for strong leash pull dogs. One of my favorites. We already kind of covered the emergency U-turn. So, oh my God, I cannot tell you, this was one of the best things that I ever learned, because I think we've all been out there and had that oh crap moment when the dog's got the momentum and you're just kind of there and they don't realize you're there. They don't care that you're there. You're just hanging on for dear life and the dog is dragging you around, right? The belly lock. So again, always 2 hands. I cannot reiterate that enough. 2 hands on that leash.
No wrapping.
Again, that 7 gives you absolute control of that leash rather than 1 hand. No wrapping, but you have that leash, both hands. And when that dog starts pulling and yanking and you're like this, you grab that leash and bring it right to your belly button and hold still. Your center of gravity completely shifts and that dog will stop. Like that is your arms are out, you are getting dragged. Your gravity is forward. You're going to keep that forward momentum going. If you bring that dog in, bring that leash in and just stand. And yeah, if that's all you do for a minute, just so number one, you can kind of recover from that because it is like an oh shit moment, get them to a run, right? Get them to the run. And if you are uncomfortable bringing the dog back in, at least you're in a run and somebody else can come and get that dog for you. But it gets you from point A to point B. Even if every couple steps you're stopping, you've still got control of that dog and you have control of that leash because your center of gravity has shifted now and you have control. So not out, keep it in, keep it close, stand tight and firm and you'll regain control of that dog. That dog will be like, it's like hitting a brick wall, like, whoa, okay, there is somebody on the end of that leash. I forgot about you. So, there's that one. And
that has always been an automatic with me. I don't know why. This is the first time I've heard somebody explain it to me, but it's always been, I think because I'm at such low center of gravity and you get those big dogs, I've always, when they're going, I just pull like this and I just pull in.
You're like, this works for me,
This
right?
works for me.
You figure that one out.
I figured it out.
But it does. It really does make a huge difference. And I've had those moments. I'm coming down across, and I'm like, oh God, that dog just got some momentum, and I'm hanging on for dear life. I'm like, okay, I gotta stop and bring that dog in for a minute and just collect myself and be like, okay, we're almost there. I just gotta get him to the run. So.
Hi, handsome. Oh, thank you.
And what's the last one we've got to cover on
Last
here?
one is constant.
Consent test.
Oh, consent test. Super quick, super easy. So a consent test is basically just asking the dog if they want to interact with you and if they don't. If they do, come here. Hi. Yes. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I stop. I just watch. If he wants to re-engage with me, great. If he doesn't, then hands off. No hands forward. I always, the 3-second test, that's why it's like 1, 2, 3 mentally. Then I'll take my hands off. See, do they want to continue re-engaging with you? Are they just standing there like, that to me, that's still a no, right? That's still a no. Don't even mess with them at that point. If they, go over, some might back up and start barking at you. That's still a no. Anytime they're increasing distance or they're staying where they're at while you're like, come here, you can pat your leg, you can call their name, you can, whatever you usually use to try to get that dog to engage, activate it, do it. If that dog's standing there like, nah, then we're not reaching towards that dog. And that goes for on leash and off leash, right? The best way to get a dog to have trust is to let that dog feel that they can trust you, right? And if they're telling you with their body language and you're not getting it and you're missing it, then they're like, yeah, okay, this is not the right one here. So it's gonna take you longer to build that trust.
Oh, I wanted to bring up about the whole belly lock, and you said if you have to get them into the a run, and then you can, also I always carry an extra 1 or 2 carabiners. So if by chance I have to quickly put that on the handle of the leash and clip it to the, you can either wrap it around a pole, or if you're near one of the fences, you clip it to the fence, and you can get. I saw that. That's why I wanted to bring it up. That way, if you have to, you can, get away from the dog, but it's still secure.
Yeah, we used to have clips. I don't know what happened.
I'm going to try to get some.
Yeah.
I have a bunch, and I can
have
get
the
them.
larger ones.
Okay.
Just so it was different. And
Yeah.
people knew like they're bigger clips and
We need
they're out
that.
there for a reason.
Just
But
in
yeah,
case.
we do. We need that.
People
We
need to leave
some.
them on there and
Put
not take them
on
off.
The hooks on the walls too. That's why a lot of times you notice our really wild, crazy HD dogs. I'm like, take them to the puppy run. Not only do they have their enrichment, but if they get too wild and crazy, you can step inside that barrier, right?
Yeah.
Step in the room.
Yeah.
The dog can still be out there and do dog things, and sometimes that's what they need to do. They don't need access to you. You set it up, you treat, scatter, do whatever, and remove yourself so they get to be a dog, right?
Yeah.
But if you are out there and that dog is constantly jumping and jumping and jumping, you can slap that handle on that hook out there and take a breather.
Yeah.
Because sometimes literally that's take a breather.
I can't remember his name, but the gray guy. The last time I got to the point where I was the only one walking him, I can't remember his name.
Optimus Prime?
No, it wasn't Prime. This was like last summer or the summer before. And he was the big guy and he was constantly jumping and nipping, but it wasn't. I was out by the pine tree and that's when he jumped up and he grabbed my,
I remember that happening.
And I'm just
I remember
like-
the dog.
And I look over and the pine tree's there and that was the closest thing I had and I had to wrap it around just so I could step back and let him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, he was just frustrated. He wasn't doing it viciously. It was just, he was jumping and nipping and I couldn't, and the closest thing was the pine tree. And so I tied him to the pine tree and stepped away, let him calm down.
And you don't even have to tie. If you have the poop bucket stands,
Yeah.
right? Throw that around, throw the leash around there so that you can loop it. And then you just pull. And that is, that's wrapped around there and shorten this side of it and you have control. You can at least, if you have to pull a little further to make the dog further away from you, then you can still do that. But it's a way that you don't have to, if you don't have clips or you don't have anything to be able to secure that dog, it's just a really quick, easy way to be able to just whip it around there, pull it, dog is secure away from you, and then you can activate air horn or holler, whatever you need to do if it's an emergency situation. Or if you just need some help and someone else to come out and do a double leash to get the dog back in or whatever.
Love him.
So, I think, so anybody want to try a straight arm again?
Let's do it. Go. There you go.
Well, now you can see.
I think I know how to do it, but I just sometimes
I have to remember which hand I walk with.
Dominant hands.
Right.
Okay, so
You
you
don't
my
have to.
right.
Okay. All right, wait, let's just wrap her up. So we'll be doing this often. Thank you, Stacy.